Welcome everybody. I'd just like to say welcome on behalf of the Event Marketing Association. I'm Emma Stoker, I'm a corporate event planner at Barclays and also a council member of the EMA. Keep it really short so that I don't take too much time away from our panel. Just to give you a bit of background to the EMA, we're an association for in-house corporate event planners. We have regular meetings, monthly meetings, networking sessions, and it's an opportunity for corporate event planners to network, share insights, information under Chatham House rules. If you want to learn a bit more about the association, we're going to be having a drinks reception afterwards just outside in the foyer. So please do come see us and also take the opportunity to chat to our panellists a little bit more about their careers. So very quickly to set the background for our panel, we've got 3 panellists here who've got very different backgrounds in event management. We've got panellists who've come from fashion backgrounds into charities, who've been PAs who then come into event management. They've done large events, small events, and we've also got a lecturer in event management as well. So quite a variety there, and hopefully that'll give you some great insights into different ways into our corporate planners. Karen's going to be our facilitator for today. She's also got a different background. She's gone from corporate into the agency, and my background is the other way, agency into corporate. So feel free to ask us questions during the session, but also catch us afterwards for drinks and ask us a few more. So enjoy. Karen, over to you.
Hi everyone, thanks Emma. Yes, just to give you a bit of background on myself, like Emma said, I used to head up events at Nationwide Building Society. I now work for an independent researcher and I run hotel inspection programmes globally. So it's quite a change, but still within the hospitality industry, and I'm still part of the Event Marketing Association. So I'm going to start the panel, and we've got Amy on the end, Pippa and Shonali, and perhaps you can just introduce yourselves quickly.
I'm hoping this works. Oh no, it doesn't, does it? Oh, it does. Oh, perfect. So I'm Amy-Lancaster Smith. I work for the NSPCC currently as the Special Events Team Manager. Do you want me to just give a bit of background about mine? Yes. So I actually started off, after I did an MA in Events Marketing Management, I then actually started in fashion retail, so warehouse fashion, so the shop on the high street I'm sure lots of you are aware of. I started there doing press events, international brand events, as well as doing a bit of project management around store openings. I then was on the side doing a bit of volunteering for Race for Life at Cancer Research UK, got completely transfixed by doing fundraising, so I ended up working for them. Then I moved on to Prostate Cancer UK, doing again challenge events, so your mass participation cycle rides and running and that kind of thing, and then transferred into special events, so your gala type events, champagne receptions, concerts. And I've been doing that ever since, and I've now led into NSPCC where I manage quite a large team there now, and they recently actually won the best in-house corporate team, so I'm very proud of that achievement. I'm going to plug that right there.
Oh, I think I'm okay. Well, that's quite loud. I'm Pippa. I work at Barclays as an events coordinator. I actually originally started out as a PA there, so going back a little bit, I started out as PA in Man Investments. Then I went off to be an office manager, so it was a little bit more of a, if any of there's office managers here, it's a bit of everything all in one, you know. One minute you're under the floor trying to fix the IT, the next minute you're doing some events. So I actually got involved in events through that. So that's how I ended up knowing I quite enjoy this. It was sort of I fell upon it in that respect. And then from then I moved on to Barclays, where I actually was in the CEO's office doing PA work, because that was where my sort of stronghold was. But we saw events from the other side, so because we were in the CEO's office, it tended to be a lot of events that were hosted by him. So we saw it from the stakeholders' point of view. And I got wind that I really did enjoy that. And one good thing about change in a business, especially in somewhere like Barclays, is that you do get to know people, you get to build on your network. And from that, that's how I then ended up knowing the group events team, and I ended up going on a secondment originally, which I am lucky enough to say it went permanent, and that was 2 years ago. So ever since then, I've been in events. So it's quite a mixture of events. We tend to do the group ones, which are for the chairman and the executive committee, but we do get involved in other areas like sort of the retail side and the investment bank side. But it's a nice varied job that keeps us busy.
Great. I'm Shonali Rodriguez. I currently work as the head of events for the British Heart Foundation. Prior to that, I was Director of Development for the event industry charity Meeting Needs. So if you haven't engaged with the event industry charity, please do. It's a fantastic way to network as well as EMA. I have worked in events for 20 years. I think we're going to be asked a bit about how we got into events, but I actually went a very circuitous route. I knew I wanted to be a project manager very early on, so I started studying architecture, and I just was frustrated at drawing 24/7. So quit university and got a job in a hotel doing events for their standalone food and beverage outlets. And then when I moved to the UK, I had the good fortune to land on my feet with a company called the Event Organisation Company, which is run by Vanessa Cotton, and started doing major events from there. I went freelance. I've been doing large-scale events like the Olympics, Paralympics, Commonwealth Games, Asian Games, political party conferences for a very long time before settling back in and doing a master's in tourism. And since then have been working part-time for the events industry charity, part-time as a lecturer in events and tourism at university until I got the British Heart Foundation job. So yeah, all over the place.
Thanks, ladies. So what I want to focus on to begin with is really your educational background, and was events your focus? Was it what you knew you wanted to do, and did you study towards it, or was your studying completely different, or at a different time? Was it earlier on in your career? Perhaps Pippa, you can start.
Yeah, well, I suppose I'm probably quite different to you both. But like I said, originally I left school not really knowing what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to work. I was always very much that I wanted to be at work doing something, so I decided to become a nursery nurse. So quite different. I did enjoy it, but it was quite stressful. I take my hat off to any nursery nurse to this day, and I still will, having 10 babies between 3 of you, But from that, you learn multitasking, which I think has seen me through your whole career. So there's always some sort of transferable skill, I believe, in every role you do, even if it's completely the opposite. But from that, it was more about that I wanted to work in like a banking organisation, more as opposed to events as such, because it was more about that I just wanted to be in a large organisation doing that sort of thing. And I'm very much about that you need to also learn at the same time. So whilst I was working at Man, I also did my HNC, which is like basically 2/3 of a degree. But I did that part-time whilst working. So, and to put it in perspective, it was literally just down the road on Lower Thames Street, so literally 2 minutes walk from here, and I'd have to get to Edgware Road, so that was about 4:30 I'd finish there, take an hour to get to Edgware Road. There I'd do that from about 6 until 9 o'clock, and then I lived in Woolwich, so all the way back. So you have to be quite committed to do it. But
what was your HNC in?
It was in business, so it was all relating to the sort of banking aspect, because that's when I realised, right, this is what I want to do. I want to get into banking, and I knew I had to work hard to do it. I think, and this was all before the crisis and everything, and I'm sure it's even more harder now. But I think if you've got that goal in mind, you've got some sort of focus. You don't need to specifically know events, some area. I think as long as you've got some sort of focus and you dwell on that, I think is an element of you find what you're good at and then you focus on that. And that's how I then sort of came into the events bit, because like I said, I had exposure that I probably wouldn't have chosen to start with, because it sort of got thrown my way. But then I realised I really did love it. And I think from then I realised in the back of my mind, I thought, right, if I can get into a large organisation like Barclays and then eventually move into like Barclays doing something that I'm good at, which was this more sort of PA work, I think then you can slowly progress into the role you want to. I think you don't have to have, I need to be there now, maybe in the future, slowly,
Okay, so Amy?
Yeah, I remember when I was at school, do you remember ever doing one of those career tests where you do a bit of a quiz and it tells you what you should be, and it turns out to be something you'd never heard of before in your life? I actually got told I ought to be an events manager at the age of 16, and I went back to my parents and I remember saying, what jobs are there in events? And they're both teachers, and they said to me, yeah, there's no living in that. I don't know what you mean by events management. They had no idea about the kind of jobs that we all do. So I went off and did a geography degree to start with, and it was all the way through that geography degree I thought, this isn't leading me towards anything. There's no practical kind of skill set that I'm learning here. It's all theoretical. So that's why I decided after my degree to do an MA in events marketing management, because I went back to that little quiz I did at the age of 16 and I thought, right, well, there's obviously something in that. So that's why I ended up doing that master's, and I think it was brilliant as a theoretical background, and it kind of gives you that insight as to what an events career might entail. I think there's a lot of use in doing education, but I also would stress the importance of actually getting the experience on the side, and doing a course like I did, which actually has a business placement as part of it, was really worthwhile, I think.
Okay, so you both sort of studied a little bit later when you were trying to find your path and what you wanted to do. How about you, Shonali?
Well, I started thinking, as I said, that I wanted to do project management. So started an architecture degree, thinking that what I was going to be doing was building projects and buildings management and bringing kind of construction and design together, which I guess is really what you do in events production, is you bring the physicality of the event and the design of the event together. So it was just kind of a nice kind of fit. I fell into that first job in events management. But what I'm going to say was really interesting, you both talking about the importance of education, because as a lecturer in events management is taught really differently across a number of universities, and I had the pleasure of teaching at 2 of them. But the 2 that I taught at was really a practical degree, and when you said you studied business, it really covers all aspects of business management, you know, from marketing to event design to finances to project management to client and relationship management. So it's a really useful tool, but it's interesting what you were saying, the theoretical side of it, is that if you do take that route straight from school, what I found, you know, is that people who hadn't had any business experience couldn't make the connection between the theory that we were trying to teach them about budgets and how it actually worked in the event world. So I think it's really important to have a mix of the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So personally, I don't have a degree, and I haven't actually done any official studying in event management, or the odd sort of small course, something like that. So I think it really shows that, you know, you don't necessarily have to have that solid event management educational background, but, you know, obviously you can as well. So if anyone is thinking about getting into the industry, then, you know, you don't necessarily need to worry about that. What I'd like to ask the panel is maybe from whom or from where or what job did you get your most inspiration or learn the most from?
I'll go first. I would say that my job I held at Prostate Cancer UK was so beneficial to me, because I really grew up throughout that organisation, and I still, even though I don't work there now, I still have a great loyalty to it, because what they did for me there was put me under insane amounts of pressure. And actually, although I had a few sleepless nights and I used to wake up worrying about some of the events I had to do sometimes, what that did was it threw me into the deep end so much that they then saw later on that I was able to cope with it. I was able to deal with all of the stuff that they threw at me. And when a manager role came up, I was able to go for it, and I got the position. So that really taught me actually that although times can get tough, and especially in events management, I'm sure everyone has probably felt the stress of it. You know, you've got this crazy amount of pressure that's building up until the big day. The event happens, then you get that sense of relief, and it's an emotional roller coaster. And I think that it just taught me at that place that can be really worthwhile and actually fun at the end of it. And just throwing yourself into those kind of situations can really lead on to good things in the end.
Did you feel when you were in that position at that very time, be honest, did you really enjoy it, or was it painful?
Parts of it painful, but parts of it, the buzz. I remember the events I was working on was the charity had just rebranded, so I was organising a launch of the new brand, and I did that at the Mayfair Hotel. So that was a really nice kind of posh event, but a lot was carried on it because we had celebrity attendance, we had a lot of PR and media around at the time, and obviously it was the big launch, so we needed to make sure that the brand was put in a position that we wanted it to be. At the same time, we had a reception at 10 Downing Street, which was a new thing for me. It was an engagement reception, so no fundraising involved, but quite a scary thing knowing you're in such a prestigious location. And then we also had a staff away day going on, so that's a completely different type of event altogether, and I was solely responsible for putting on that away day. So basically the team left me, and so I was left on my own, and that's why I was in this position. Yeah, a lot of pressure, but I'm so glad, because it does just show what you can do, and you realise what you can achieve when you're under that kind of pressure.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say a similar thing really. When I first actually started at Barclays, being in the CEO's office, you can probably imagine you've got people, i.e. CEO and the execs, that haven't really got the time to sort of show you anything and just sort of expect you to know. Because either you've probably replaced someone that's probably amazing, or everything's just been sorted and they've never really got involved in it. So you kind of just get left and like, right, do. And you're sat there going, I don't know anything, I haven't got any systems set up, what's going on? And I remember going home to my partner that night going, can't handle it. Well, I just need to go back to what I'm doing, just having a little bit of a sort of, meltdown. I remember him telling me, he goes, you've had it before, trying to obviously big me up and sort of, saying, just be fine. And then going in bit by bit, you get to learn things, you sort of learn things for yourself. And I think some of the girls in my team sometimes are always surprised, going, how do you know to know that? And it's like, you got told, I need this done today, and you're like, okay, I will find a way. I will speak to someone, I will go over there, you'll find a way when, they'll come over and go, is it done? And you're like, yeah. Because that's just, in that environment, you've got to be like that, that makes you kind of, and afterwards you do get the buzz, because you're like, I pulled it off, yeah, I'm all right, and but to start with, it was a bit of a sort of strain, but I think that's what we all thrive on a little bit. You just got to put yourself out there and get involved a little bit. So.
Absolutely, it is those moments of extreme pressure that really, really teach you stuff about yourself as well as stuff about event management, I think. And that job with Vanessa was a baptism by fire in terms of having to turn over massive events. I particularly remember a weekend that we stayed and worked all weekend because something had gone wrong with the registration system, so we had 15,000 records that we then had to add something to. So me and my whole team were in eating pizza all weekend and trying to do that. And it's just those moments that build teams, but also the ability to work in small organisations as well as, because I know I've done some pretty big events, but being in the smaller organisations really teaches you a lot, because you get to see firsthand how teams interact, what they're doing. Vanessa was an incredible networker, so we got to meet lots of other people and find out that actually what we're doing is quite normal in the events industry in terms of how everyone else is delivering. Working with the events industry charity as well, when you're working in a really small remit and you've got a lot to achieve, it's that pressure that really teaches you stuff about events and about yourself, I think. Yeah.
Thanks. I, just to sort of agree with you on that point, I remember leaving Nationwide and going to work for BDRC, and it was so different going from that corporate event planning which I was used to, and I was really nervous about it. And the first 4 months of my new job, I'm not going to lie, were horrific. I remember having a nosebleed on the train on the way home once, so I just couldn't cope. And then eventually when you come to the other side of it and you realise that everything ties in and you can actually do it, and it's just a matter of working hard and pulling on those skills, then it's you're actually learning from yourself and your own experience. But I know, Shonali, you mentioned Vanessa specifically. Would you say she was a mentor to you?
Absolutely. She was, I don't know if any of you know who she was, but there is, I think she sponsors an NPI award now for furtherance of education in the events industry. But she was an absolute spearhead within the industry, and I just feel so lucky to have been a part of her team, because she would be involved in everything. She was deeply involved in NPI as president. She was always networking, and that was how she got her jobs, her business, her new people that worked with her, how she measured how she was doing and benchmarking with everyone else. She was absolutely brilliant at it, and that taught me the absolute importance of networking and getting to know people around you, and at all levels as well. You never know where anyone's going to be in their career. It's really important to get to know as many people as you can.
Okay, we'll pick up on networking in just a moment, but Amy and Pippa, have you had a mentor specifically?
I've never had a mentor actually, but I'm actually out there at the moment looking for one, so if anyone knows anyone that's good, I would love to have a mentor, because I think I've got to a stage of my career now where I know so much about charities. I've been in charities now for the last 6, 7, 8 years. So now I feel like I need to know a little bit about the other industries and the other areas of which I might be able to go to work one day. I don't know very much about them at all. So events like this and meeting people from banking, from insurance, from entertainment, from all the different media, wherever it might be, events are so different in all of those different places. And I think the only way you actually manage to learn about those things is by getting guided by someone in particular, or by doing the networking thing, which I know you want to come on to, so I'll stop there.
Yeah, I mean, I've had sort of unofficial sort of mentoring aspects. When I first started at Barclays, actually, there was a a lady called Barbara, and she worked in our team, but she was very much different. She was in strategy, you know, vice president, she'd been there for I think 10 years or so, very advanced in her career, and so it was from a different aspect that I sort of went to her to be like a mentoring, because you just go to her as a bit of a soundboard, because she wouldn't really understand the context of the, you know, the detail of what you're working on, because it was completely different polar opposites. But that mentoring was literally, look, I've been there, like in terms of, for example, there's sort of situations where you're like, I'm really stressed, or she's like, I've had times where I've done this, I've done that, this is how I worked around, and it was just good to have that soundboard. She and Bentley actually went to Costa Rica eventually to then open a surfboard shop. So it just goes to show you can literally go from one extreme to the other, and she's still there now and she is very happy. But yeah, to agree, I think the network thing is paramount, even in your business, but I think I need to personally improve more of my network outside of the business, because I'm very lucky that I have got quite a good network, even friends, very good friends that I've kept through my career, you know, a couple from Man Group that very good friends of mine. But it's about that sort of side of things in your professional career, then making sure that you're actually building on where you are now. So yeah, I think it's very important to have both mentoring. And that doesn't have to be the sort of, I think, the official, we will meet on Tuesday, we will talk about this. I think it can just be just chat for a coffee, see how you're getting on. And then, like I said, the networking thing aside as well, definitely very important.
Okay, thank you. So I joined the Event Marketing Association 2-3 years ago. I'm looking at Richard like he's going to know, but two years ago. And for me it was a way that it did change my career. I met lots of people. I hadn't been part of an association before, and I really did find that what I put in I got out, and I learned so much, and I just now have such a network of people around me that I know that I can contact, and I have the EMA to be thankful for that. And hopefully, you know, there's people out there as well that are interested to get involved. But that all comes really from networking, which is what we're about. So yes, we have an educational programme, but also it's about meeting each other and sharing experiences. So I want to talk about really with the panel is you know, how important has industry networking been for you, and is there a specific moment or time that stood out for you? Like for when I joined the Event Marketing Association, for me that was really key in my career, and I use it now every day in my job. And maybe I can put that out to the panel.
I think who wants to go first?
I don't mind going first. I think for me, I mean, I because I've only just really got into the events world, I'd say, well, I've been there 2 years, so I think in relative speaking, that's quite a short amount of time. So for me, it's about working on that and moving more into the events networking. Through the PA network, you can probably understand, we had a wide network. We had, you know, we even had a little message system. It's called BChat at work. And some of the girls see me now going on it, and they're like, well, who are you talking to? And we used to have on there, if you were having a little moment, you know, you could go, how do I do this? How do I? And you know, you can imagine how big Barclays is, how many people you'd meet. And I was a true believer in that networking, because then it actually ended up eventually getting me this job, I think. So, I mean, from that aspect, I need to work on the more events now side of things in terms of networking. But for networking in my previous role, I mean, I can't fault it enough, because like I said, it ended up providing me the path to get to where I am now. So.
I'd say networking is so important. Events like this at the Square Meals, and going and seeing all of those exhibitors, all of the suppliers, all the venues. I mean, all of us do research on that kind of thing when we're looking for a new venue, but actually having it all there in front of you and actually meeting those people face to face, that's when you can get those relationships where you might be able to negotiate better and, you know, get a really good discount on your next supplier or the next venue that you use. And I think if you're just ringing people up cold rather than building those relationships in advance, that's a lot harder to do. But I'd also say with the EMA, they do some great evening lectures and things. I mean, we had, there was one actually on public speaking, which I learned a lot from, because as an event manager, you often have to brief your senior staff on what they're going to be delivering at your event, and telling them what kind of key messages you want to put out there. And so just having that session taught me about what those senior people are actually having to go through in their presenting, and actually has helped me to brief them better for that in the future. So things that you weren't really expecting to learn, you can learn by going to those kind of sessions. And meeting people like this as well, and just finding out more about all the different areas of events. It's just really useful.
Yeah, really useful. Networking. I think everyone does networking in different ways, and some people can't stand it. Most introverts, like myself, would you believe, most introverts find it really difficult to engage with people on a one-to-one level, or find our peers within a network. So you come to an event like this and it's like, well, who am I networking with, and whose card should I pick up, and who should I speak to? And I think that's where organisations like the EMA can be really, really useful, because you realise you're talking to people who you can have an instant connection with. And I think I would say find those groups, find those organisations that can give you an opportunity to network with a bunch of people that you have a commonality with. And you'll find that the event industry ends up being a lot smaller than you think, and you come across people at different points in their careers and you all kind of overlap. So yeah, we just kind of become one big network. When I was freelancing, networking was crucial, because I'd come to events like this, I'd meet new suppliers, we had a network of freelance professionals, and we were able to say, well, I'm working 6 months on this project, but I've been offered this and it's a 2-month event, can you turn it round? So it was crucial for us to share business ideas across those networks. So yeah, I'd say it was really, really important.
And knowledge sharing and ideas sharing as well. With events, we're constantly under that pressure to try and deliver new things, creative ideas. And I don't know about everyone else, but I feel like I've got to a level where I've got no more ideas. I don't know what else to do. So actually coming along and speaking to other people and hearing about what they've done, it just gets something else into your mind that might bring something new and creative that you can bring to your own organisation.
I was just thinking on that point, even picking up the phone to somebody that you've met, that you could ring them and say, if you've got any ideas, something I can do, and 9 times out of the 10 they either do, or they can say, no, but so and so does, or I saw this great thing the other day. So even if it's somebody that you might not use in business, for example, it's still just having those contacts, isn't it?
And if you do know someone, it's really it's easier to leverage a relationship out of them, because Meeting Needs, the events industry charity, was built on networking with people and getting to know what their charity needs were, and trying to work with them as a result of creating bigger and bigger networks around the charity. So yeah.
Okay. So we just want to touch on, before we open out to questions in the audience, about work-life balance, and it's something that comes up a lot and is discussed, and so I think really the question is, how do you juggle that, and does it ever change? Amy?
It's hard. It's really hard. When you're working at events, you're doing late nights, you're doing weekends, you're starting early, you're finishing late. So getting that work-life balance is really difficult. I don't know about lots of other organisations, but we've got a toil policy, so time off in lieu, and that really helps, just being able to actually have a bit of time back. But in terms of how I manage it personally, believe it or not, it's more planning. It's actually planning some relaxation time. So I know I've got a big event happening actually in this building on Thursday next week, and I've already planned my holiday for straight afterwards, because I know that I'm going to have that period of build-up, I'm going to get to pure exhaustion, the event will be over, I get the relief, and now I actually need to have some time back for myself. So actually planning in your relaxation time is the way I do it, otherwise I don't think I'd get through. Spa days are good.
Yeah, I completely agree. There is some days when you're just like, when is this going to finish? When are these emails going to stop coming in? Like, I need to actually answer them and action some of them at some point and do some work. But I think it's like you said, I think you just have to work it for yourself. Everyone knows themselves. Everyone knows how they can work themselves, and everyone has different ways of working. I personally feel quite incredibly lucky to work with such a great team, because there are moments, and I've nicknamed them meerkat moments, where pretty much we sit on a bank of desks, and if you are having a bit of a problem, like you're like, I'm swallowed up here, even just as, such a small thing like name badges, something like that, you're like, you literally just stand up and go, girls, you've got like 30 minutes, and everyone, without fail, tools down, say, yeah, done. And it works because everyone has that moment at some point or another. And I think, I'm not sure if that's the same in any other team, so that's why I feel quite incredibly lucky, because it'll be interesting to hear the aspects, because it is literally like, all hands on deck, what do you need, how do we make this better? And then, you move on, and then you work it out. And I think that's what gets it free for me. I think you work with a great team. We've got really good at work, we've got quite a flexible aspect, so, if you really needed to change your hours and stuff, they would be open to that. It's not, you must be in the office at this time and leave at this time. There is ways around things. I think you just have to make it work for yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I think structures like flexible working and toil is really important in events. And sometimes if you're in an events department in a wider organisation, they don't often get how important that is for an events team because of the peaks and troughs that we experience in workload. But yeah, working with a good team, planning, absolutely planning. Everyone I've always worked for always laughs because I'll look at my year's schedule of events and go, right, this and this and this is when I'm taking annual leave this year. And they say, well, how do you know? And I said, well, this is the only time I get downtime in between all of that. So yeah, planning is crucial, spa days are crucial. Yeah, having a good team, definitely.
I know before we spoke I asked if anyone on the panel had children, because for me I don't have children, and actually nobody on the panel has children, so I did think, oh no, is this going to look like, you can't have children and be in the events industry. But actually Claire Mazes, who was Pippa's manager and also was Claire's manager at Barclays, maybe you can just tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean not just Claire, but we've got in our group team, I mean most of the team, at least half of the team are mothers, and well, Claire, for example, she has 3 children, and I was telling the panel, she used to sit next to me, and every so often you'd hear a phone call or something, and she'd go, well, you never guess what happened, and then she'll tell you a story about one of her children, and you'd be like, how did you get through? I'll be fine, it'll be right, and we'll do this and that, and then it's fine, so it just goes to show it does work. I mean, it does help. We have brilliant management that are really embracing that side of things now. They've all gone on training for like dynamic working and things, and I feel comfortable that if ever I needed to go up to the moment, kids or no kids, I think I could go up and say, look, I've got this going on, I need to do this, can you help me? And I fully know that I would be supported, and I think that's a big aspect in itself. I think as long as you have a supportive management and you feel you can go to them, I think that anyone, kids, no kids, married, not married, anything, you can work in events, because I think there's ways around it. Like I keep saying, like, as long as you manage it yourself and know what you need, I think if you've got the management that you feel like you can go and speak to them, then yeah, there should be that support there, definitely.
Okay, so I thought we would open out to the audience for some questions. I don't know if there's a spare mic at the back. Has anybody got any questions? The lady in the middle here? Do you want to just put your hand up again? That would be great, thanks.
Hi. I've just gone from a permanent 9-to-5 job into freelancing events management. I've been doing it about 4 months now. I've got this great big directory of suppliers, venues, caterers, you name it. But how do you get the clients to sell it to? Because I know I don't do corporate events, I do creative and parties. And how, as a freelancer, would you go about getting your first clients?
Has anyone freelanced?
I've freelanced. Have you freelanced? Yeah. So when I made the flip to freelance, I tried to make sure I had a client in the back pocket before I started. So I had the one, and from that one, I was networking with, and I chose to do it in a particular industry sector. So I don't know if you have a target market or a target area or demographic that you're looking at, but I focus on them, try and get one client, and then you'll find that it's not just about word of mouth, it's about who they work with, and trying to get recommendations and asking them to get business meetings with you. Even, again, going back to the networking thing, even if it's a cup of coffee, asking people what events they do, saying, well, I could do that, or offering expertise that isn't something that you would be paid to give expertise on. You build the relationships with people. Sometimes those relationships don't take off for 2-3 years, but they often pay off. But I was talking earlier as well about being a member of a network for freelancers. There is something called the UK Freelance Network. It's online as well, they post jobs online. They have get-togethers. I know a number of small event companies like Ruby Bloss do get-togethers for freelancers, so they will take them on board. So small event management companies that have 2 or 3 full-time employees and look for a range of freelancers to deliver their events, and that could be in the creative industry as well. So look out for small companies, freelance networks, and try and get a client that will help you network with other clients, I think is my advice. Does that help?
Yeah,
thank you. Good.
Anything to add, Amy?
Well, it's not something I've ever done, but it's something that I'm considering actually at some stage in my career. And I think for me, when I've been thinking about it, you've probably got more experience than I have in this, but when I've been thinking about it, I've just been thinking about what is it that I have that other freelancers wouldn't have. So to obviously break down the competition a little bit. And my first thought, I've worked in charities, so my first thought was, should I be going to the really small charities who might not have enough funds for an events team? But then I've worked on some really large-scale charities and had all of that experience, so would be able to bring that. And that might be a little bit different from what other freelancers might be able to do. I don't know, people could tell me different. So I think it's about finding your speciality as well, and your own personal USP, I suppose. But as I say, I've not had experience, so I probably am not the best person to answer.
No, I think it's really good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Lady at the front here, could we put the mic down? Thanks, Emma.
Can't take her out of the dance,
No, can't take her away.
Thank you. I've got an event management degree. I've done a lot of event catering over my student years, and as a graduate, small scale, very large scale, done 5-star hotel events, and very strong operational skills. I went on to do small event management, venue finding, and then self-employment doing corporate projects. A few years ago I thought I would have a very good range of skills that would be very attractive to work within the corporate world. I approached a couple of job agencies within the sector, and not interested, because the corporate world wants people with corporate experience. So my question to you is, how do you get your foot in the door? Because if people don't give you the opportunity, how do you go about it? And do you think, having said all of this, is a candidate such as me as an attractive candidate to work within corporate events?
Yeah, I think maybe I should say this. I think I completely agree. Like, that was one of the main reasons I ended up going to Barclays as a PA, and even going back further, that's how I ended up really being at Man as a PA, because it is hard getting your foot in the door. And this was, like I said, even before 2008, and then after that it just went, and I mean, it's got a lot better now. It's, getting back to the way it was, but I was quite lucky. It was an element of when I originally I had a boss that was wanting to empower women, and she wanted, because I was going into an industry which was nearly all men, and I had many interviews where I got told, in not so many words, because I was a woman, I couldn't have the job, PA or anything, So that was one aspect. I was quite lucky, the fact that she wanted to give me a shot, she wanted me to learn. I think as well, it's very important to hone in on CV and really go through your transferable skills. If you really then start to think, right, what have I done? What can I bring to this? What are they needing from me? Every job has transferable skills, definitely. Like I said about the nursery nurse, you might think, really? But multitasking in, especially in events, that is a skill that if you don't have, you sink, because, you're obviously normally you're having so many events on at once, you've got a phone call about this, so it's about, I think, tailoring the CV as well to really what you think they need out of it. So, for example, the skills you've got lots of different areas. You've got that aspect where you've been working with the corporates through from the stakeholders' point of view. So you've got that stakeholder management through the other side. So I think you might have to be open to maybe doing a slightly different role to start with if it turns out, because that's basically what I did. I had to be open to the fact that I wasn't going to get the end goal when I first came out. It was literally, I started off even just as an admin assistant, then went to a PA, and then sort of got involved in more of the trading floor and things. But I had to accept that I needed to show myself once I'm in the door. And then once you're in the door, in the corporate environment, it is all about network, it's about showing yourself, getting involved in things. I think that's how it works really well in that area. It's really hard to get that little foot in the door, but then once you're there, then you can spread out. So I would keep at it. I wouldn't stop, because you just need that one person to say, yep, that's it. And actually, in an example of that, one of my friends just texted me before this. She's been trying to get into a corporate events job, and she'd done an events degree and everything, and she was doing a lot of internship. And I met her about 2-3 months ago, and she was like, I've had enough of doing this. I just need someone. And I told her, I was just like, just keep going. One person needs to give you that job. One person. And you know what it's like. You don't want to hear that at that point in time. You're like, that's not really what I want to hear. But it takes one person to give you that shot. And then from then, you can then just move around, get your feel about things, build the network and everything.
And I'd just say make it easy for them. So you've just explained loads of different experience that you've had. I've kind of on your point of honing it down on your CV, I would just say if I was somebody who was looking at an application, if it looked so busy and I couldn't really easily ascertain what is it that this person is good at that matches this job description, I think maybe do the networking thing, talk to corporate event planners, see what they think are the most important aspects of their job that might not be on that job description, and that's what you need to focus on. So as an example, in charities, I interview quite a lot of people that haven't necessarily had fundraising experience, but if they've shown on their CV and on their application that actually they've worked really hard and they understand that the need to cut down their expenditure is really important, or they've managed to make a really good net profit on one of their events, which you could then equivalent to fundraising, or if they've done a lot with corporate social responsibility or something and part of their role, that all factors into what I need as a fundraising event manager. So I know it's different because you want to go into the corporate event side, but just thinking about what they would want that's additional to what they just put on the job description, and then honing in on that and what you've got that would work for them.
I was just going to say there are a number of corporate planners actually who are members of the EMA, so it's worth hanging around afterwards and having a chat with them.
Yeah, just in my experience, I actually started Nationwide as a mortgage underwriter, and I ended up running the events team after 10 years. It took 10 years, so I don't have that time. But I became a PA. I did corporate hospitality and events, and I just fell into it. So I understand what you mean about getting that foot in the door. It's really hard, but I never thought I would be in events, and I did a job that was so different. So possibly your skills might be used elsewhere in a corporate. If you're that determined to work in corporate, there might be other jobs that you'd be good at as well. And once you get in that door, like Pippa was saying, then that's when you start meeting everyone. I used to talk to all the PAs all the time, and then I got a job being a PA, and then that was it. So maybe we can have a chat. Anybody else? This lady? How are we for time?
I just wondered. I wondered if you use particular software to sort of organise yourself or your clients. Anything that you would recommend, even just to organise yourself, and maybe a diary, an online calendar. Okay.
Well, I probably the corporate, as in terms of the banking world, is probably not a brilliant example for technology, because you would think that we've got the latest ones, but sometimes you're looking at it going, how am I in the dark ages? But obviously from my background as a PA, I've always kept that going in terms of like the diary. I always have my home one. I'm probably going to sound a bit pedantic now. I've got my home one and my work one, and I'll invite from my work one to my home one. And it just means that it's just, you've got it there, because like you said, like if there's an event where you're working late, for example, you just need it to, obviously the event's coming, but just have that in there, have it so it's coming, even if it's months away, just pop it in there. You've got it, like you said, holidays, I mean, I'm quite lucky, my partner works in the investment bank, so they have to do the mandatory block leave of 2 weeks, and they have to do it 2 weeks. So he has to plan his at the start of the year, because basically it gets divvied out, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks. So mine inadvertently gets planned basically a year in advance anyway, but I think regardless of that, you need to be forward planning, because that's what we do as events planners at the end of the day. We're always forward planning, we're always thinking ahead. I'm planning a carol service at the moment, which feels strange, but I've just got to get my head in that game. So I think, like you said, it doesn't have to be too strict, it doesn't have to be too regimental, but I think there's a lot to be said for diaries, Outlook, And in terms of actual systems at ours, we're in more sort of budgeting and things. I would say ours aren't that advanced, really. I think if you've got a head on you and you get in the game, you can work them out quite quickly. I think it's as long as you've been quite used to being on a PC and stuff, there's not anything that I think people can't work out. It just needs that sort of time to be shown, for one thing, which you didn't used to get when you're an office manager. It was just like, here you go. But I think anyone can work it out. It's nothing that strict and judgmental. So.
Amy, Shonali, do you use time management systems?
Well, I was just thinking, we all gave each other a look when you asked that question, which kind of inferred that we didn't really. It was more that I was thinking that as soon as I start using a system of any kind, it either doesn't work with the client that I'm trying to work with, or, you know, so it always comes down to the basics: Word, Excel, PowerPoint, you know, all the office tools. But in terms of my time, I actually started using a tool about 6 or 7 years ago called a Daily Massive Action Planner. It's downloadable from the internet, and it breaks your day into 3 large project areas, and then the 5 key things that you have to deliver under that project to move it forward, and then underneath that is the 2 key people you need to speak to, and then underneath that is the 1 thing you have to achieve. And it's downloadable from the internet. But for me, when you're juggling multiple projects, that was a really clear way of planning my time, and also getting to know that when I didn't get through all of those things, that I had an understanding in my head that what I thought I could achieve was completely different to what I could actually achieve within a day. So I found that was the only thing that I used for myself, really. But other than that, it's the usual things. Calendar synchronisation, really important wherever you work and whatever you do, I think. But that's about it.
I think you also stick to what you know. I don't want to sound like a complete technophobe, but sometimes there's all these systems that you end up spending more time putting information into them, and then you sort of revert back to your normal plan anyway. So I'm sure there are some fantastic systems out there. But personally, I use my Outlook calendar. It's absolutely stuffed with things, and it's what I know, and it works well for me. So I personally would say stick to what you know, what works well for you. Thank you. Anybody else? Just the lady. Systems for badges and registration processes?
For registration we do, we use a system called e-touches, which makes like sort of basically like web pages and things like that, you know, and you send it to your delegates, they register on there. In terms of name badges, we're actually quite basic, even compared to our other events teams who have like sort of name badge systems and everything. Ours is branded paper, name badge merge from Word, in it goes, hope it doesn't get stuck, and then you divide them up and just stuff them in. So because ours tends to be a lot of sort of large internal events where you don't need lots of information because it's not sort of, you know, you don't have lots of one-to-ones and things like that. It will be a lot of ours are similar to this, you know, and so we don't need to go into a lot of detail. But when there are needs, we will then send them to print and things like that to get more ones. And we've actually started using a lot of apps now. I'd say in the last sort of 6 months or so, it seems to be that pretty much apps now are the way for our events. We put all our information on there, so you know they'll get a name badge and that'll be pretty much it. You know, they'll register on it, they'll get joining instructions, but the rest of it will all be on the app. We're trying to sort of get the eco side of things going as well. You know, the lack of paper and things. So yeah. No, you don't use them.
Well, I was going to say, a charity is all about return on investment, so we can't really verge into
And
name
actually,
tags.
the kind of events that I run, we don't need to do that many name badges. So
Yeah. Although it's worth saying that whole digital application is changing the way people register and see things and work. I mean, all of our stuff is done through apps and digital registration because it's virtually cost-free.
Okay, I think that sort of draws us to an end now. About time. The Event Marketing Association does have an educational event on Monday evening at
6:30.
Sorry,
ETC venues at 6:30.
ETC venues at 6:30 at St Paul's. We're going to be just outside hosting a little drinks reception, so if you want to speak to any of us here on the panel or 3 of my lovely colleagues over here, we would be really happy to talk to you about the association. So just have a good day everyone, and hopefully we'll speak to you outside. Thank you.